please join me in welcoming from Wounded Warrior Project, Cindy Parsons.
I'm short, so I gotta lower this for a shorty, right? War leaves a path of scars. Some you can see visually, others you can't see. They're invisible. I didn't realize that affected me as a mom, as a parent, until one day when I looked in a mirror and I didn't recognize the person that was looking back at me in the mirror. I thought, who is that? You see, traumatic experiences have changed me. It began when my father, who served during Korea in the United States Army, and then transitioned into the Ohio National Guard. And I remember growing up watching him pack his bag and leaving, and I get so emotional as a young girl, saying, "Daddy, why are you leaving?" He said, "Cindy, you must understand that we sacrifice for others to help them." Those were the words that emulated in my mind as a little girl, and as I grew up, I understood his words. I got it. But my scars started to accumulate. My father was burned in 1975 to third-degree burns as he went to light the pilot light in our basement. And I was 18 years old, the oldest of 4 children. What was supposed to be a happy time of me graduating, it was devastating when I walked in my dad's room and saw him severely burned, and I vowed that day that I would become a nurse and never treat my patients the way I saw my father treated. That was a tough time. Then I met the love of my life as time went on. I found my husband, Rick. He was an amazing husband. We fell in love, got married, and 7 years later we wanted children, but it didn't happen. Then I found out he had brain cancer. He had a tumor the size of a grapefruit. It was cancer. But then something miraculously happened. A month before he started chemotherapy, I found out I was pregnant. We had a boy. And he named him Shane after his neurologist. My husband passed away when Shane was 6 months old. I promised my husband I'd be the best mom I could be and help our son be strong and grow up to be happy and do something productive in his life. Shane was quite the young man. Typical boy, right? Didn't really like school. Was always out there, energetic. But as high school approached, everything changed when 9/11 occurred. Do you remember where you were at when 9/11 occurred? I was actually at one of my lectures for nursing school, and they made us leave. And I'll never forget when I got home seeing my son watching the TV as the first Twin Tower fell, then the second Twin Tower fell. But was so impactful and changed both of us when we saw the first responders run towards that devastation. They didn't run away. They ran towards it, and that changed all of us as Americans. But Shane was deeply upset, and as he clenched his fist and said, "Mom, how dare they come onto our soil and attack innocent people?" He said, "I've been thinking about this. I want to join the service and follow in your dad's footsteps and Grandpa Parsons, who served during World War II in the United States Army." I'm a girl of the 70s in high school, and all I could remember is Vietnam, and I was terrified. But I had to keep those feelings inside me, so my scars started to accumulate on top of each other. I kept my composure and said, "Shane, I'm very proud of you." And in my mind, I thought he'll change his mind, but he didn't. 1 month out of graduating high school, he left for Fort Benning, Georgia, for boot camp. Many of you in this audience know now it's renamed. I think it's called Fort Belvedere. Is that what it's called? I can't remember. It was tough for me. I poured myself into work. I worked emergency room medicine, med surg, OB, anything to keep my mind wrapped around that my son would be sent to the most volatile war of Operation Iraqi Freedom. We were fully engulfed at that time. And I remember on TV seeing how many wounded and how many killed on a daily basis. I couldn't watch TV anymore. And then he called me and said, "Mom, I got my call of duty. They're sending me to Iraq." That was December of 2005. It was tough. You see, those wounds started to accumulate to me, but I also knew that warriors and their families felt it. My scars from watching my son and what he went through. Now, according to the Department of Veterans Affairs, 6 out of every 100 people will experience trauma sometimes in their lives. And that will transform into post-traumatic stress disorder, the invisible wounds, the scars. It can lead to depression, anxiety, and in some cases, suicide. Those invisible wounds can transform you and your whole being. But what if you allow that to change you forever? Very difficult. For Shane, I remember when that phone call telling me that he had been critically wounded on September 30th of 2006. I had just pulled a 12-hour shift in our community hospital in emergency room medicine. I remember every day I would have patients come in and I'd see my son's face in their face. It was so tough. But I knew that I had to be strong. And when I got that call that morning when I got home telling me that my son had been critically wounded, I dropped to my knees. I thought it was a joke. And they said, "No, ma'am, this is not a joke. Please stand by." 3 phone calls later, I found out that he had lost his left leg above the knee and they had to amputate the right leg to save his life. Now, being in the medical field as a nurse, I realized that our medical military teams are amazing. If it wasn't for their talent, their incredible experience, my son would not be here today. So let's give them a round of applause to our nurses, our doctors, our Navy corpsmen, our medics, as we speak, saving lives around the world. I watched my son as I walked into the room of Landstuhl, Germany, to be at his side. You see, that day he left for a mission that he volunteered for. I didn't know warriors got days off, but it was his day off. He covered for a brother who was having a very difficult time. That brother was having some bad times and issues, and he said, "I've got your back. Stay back. I'll take this mission." And as he drove the lead Humvee to prevent the enemy from attacking our troops, they were waiting. They detonated what they call an EFP, explosive form penetrator. This was meant to take a tank out. So you can imagine the devastation on the Humvee. Put a coffee can size hole in the Humvee, severed the left leg, then the right, then the gunner lost his left leg. And they were fired upon. And that's when the medics had to wait before they could reach Shane. And unfortunately, he bled out and had cardiac arrest. Not once, but twice. When I heard these words, the scars just started accumulating. My son was now building his scars. But I watched him as we came back to Landstuhl, Germany, to Walter Reed Army Medical Center, and I remember sitting on a jump seat next to him on a C-130. And as that huge door opened up, the Red Cross bus came and rushed Shane and I to the Walter Reed Army Medical Center, where his diagnosis was a severe anoxic traumatic brain injury, invisible wound of war, which led to depression, anxiety, and above knee bilateral amputee, which much more than that. As a nurse, I knew that I had to leave my job because he would need me for the rest of his life. Nothing would ever be the same. You see, he lost the ability to read and write. He has cognitive deficits for life. Short-term, long-term memory losses, not able to drive. Imagine going to a restaurant as a 21-year-old. Yes, he was 21. And picking up a menu and you can't read it. Tough. But what I truly was taken back is when they brought him back, he was put in a coma, a barbiturate coma, to keep him stable, because when I walked in that room at Landstuhl, I forgot to mention, a tube was protruding out of his brain because of those multiple cardiac arrests. His brain started to swell. So it wasn't the fight of losing his legs. The fight was going to be the invisible wound of a severe brain injury. I remember him coming out of the coma that they put him in to stabilize him, and he didn't know who I was. He called everybody grandma. It was so hard. He didn't know who I was, and I thought maybe that was a blessing, that he would not remember what happened to him. But I also remember one day he woke up and he knew who I was. He said, "Mom, where have you been?" I said, "I've been here every day, honey." And I tell everybody that was day number 1 of his rehabilitation, to relearn everything all over. To learn how to comb his hair, how to eat, how to use the bathroom in a wheelchair with no legs. And I remember one day walking in his room and he's crying, profusely crying. And my mother, who was with me, got upset. She says, "Go in there, help him." I said, "No. He needs to understand what happened to him. Let him cry." And he looked at me and said, "I should have died out there, Mom. I should not be here." And I said, "No, that's not true. That is not true." You see, I told him, "You are here for a reason. I don't know what that reason is, but someday you will understand." Those scars, all those scars started to form again. What I didn't realize, of all the people that came into Walter Reed to help Shane, and all our warriors and their families, and 2 gentlemen walked in. It was Wounded Warrior Project. I had no idea who these people were. They had shirts on with the firemen carry. And they said, "We're here for you, Shane, and your mom. And if there's anything you need, you let us know." They had no idea. I didn't realize that their mission was to honor and empower wounded warriors, and a vision to foster the most successful generation of wounded service members in our nation's history, serving those post 9/11 that have been injured either in theater, overseas, or in the States. If they've been wounded, they would get free programs and services. I had no idea until Shane finally came home, and let me tell you, it was scary. I was terrified because suicide is very rampant in the world of our veterans. It was tough, and I got scared. And when he came home, I was so worried. And that's when they came forward and said, "We're here for you." And they hired a contractor to come in and say, "What do you want to do, Shane?" I remember sitting at the kitchen table, and he says, "I want to coach football. I was good in high school with football. I want to teach our youth in our community." And they made it happen with the Independence Program to provide services for those 100% disability that require a caregiver 24/7. Shane, that was Shane. I had to be with him 24/7. He needed me all the time for safety reasons. And they said, "Let's do this, Shane." And they found the right person to come in every day, or 3 days a week, to help him attain that goal. He ended up coaching junior high and high school football in our community. And it changed him. It changed him. It gave him his self-confidence back, that he could be productive. I'm watching him transform in front of my eyes. He kept going forward. He started to do more things like downhill skiing at the Disabled Sports Clinic in Aspen, Colorado. I was terrified, you guys, because I thought he was going to kill himself going down that hill. He ended up winning the Novice Ski Award that year for the fastest skier. Unbelievable. He went on to do the Soldier Ride with Wounded Warrior Project, riding bikes for 2 days with warriors like himself. How do you ride a bike with no legs? They provide adaptive equipment where he just uses his arms. Just his arms. And he would laugh. "My mom's at the back. Don't worry, she'll catch up." I never did. I couldn't keep up with him until we came up to a hill. This hill was very steep. And I thought, how is he going to get through that? And guess what? All the warriors came behind him, pushed him up that hill. Because that's what we do. As a nation, we get behind them and we help them get over those hills when they need help. He went on to do fishing and hunting, his love of fishing and hunting, and gain that self-confidence where now he has played sled hockey for several teams across the United States and currently plays for the Columbus Blue Jackets sled hockey team, a traveling team which he just finished in Dallas. And he called me last night and said, "Mom, we won our championship for our division." Amazing, amazing. Wounded Warrior Project does a survey every year, and we find how important it is to see how our warriors and their family members are doing with our programs. And they still find that 3 out of 4 warriors still report mental health challenges such as depression, anxiety. And we make sure that they are never left to face this alone. With the Warrior Care Network to help them, we have partnered with 4 medical, world-renowned hospitals across the United States to provide help for post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, and added on to that, military sexual trauma and substance abuse, all free as an outpatient program for 2 weeks, and then follow through with them and the families. Watching Shane transform in front of my eyes reminded me, and I equate it to the eagle, our national bird, right? The eagle is so beautiful and strong, and it represents courage and strength and resiliency. But there's a time where the eagle starts to wear down. They're like a warrior themselves. Their feathers fall out. Their beak is not strong to break the food apart. It breaks off. It's weak. Their talons aren't sharp anymore. They can't grab things. So they leave. And what do? They transform. They break their beak off, the remaining beak on a rock. They pull their talons out. They pull the rest of their feathers out. Why? So it grows back. They become stronger, more resilient. And that's what I think Shane has overcome, and being strong, resilient, and just overcoming those obstacles. Today we pay homage to you as veterans in this community and across the United States. That we will never, ever forget what you've done for our country and how you kept us safe as we sleep in our bed at night. And it reminds me of the quote that's on the back of your program, and I had to utilize it. And I quote from President Ronald Reagan, "Veterans know better than anyone else the price of freedom, for they have suffered those scars of war. We can offer them no better tribute than to protect what they have won for us." Strong words. And for me, I am so blessed to have the opportunity to be a voice for those that cannot speak. Traveling the country to promote awareness, educate public about our struggles with our warriors and family support members such as myself. Something wonderful happened during this many years of struggle with Shane and doing programs with the Wounded Warrior Project. He met a girl, and guess what? They're married now, and I have 2 grandsons, Owen and Emmett. Yes, it's amazing. Not all warriors meet their spouses at an event, but you just never know. She has now taken my place as the caregiver, and she's doing an amazing job. She's actually from Pennsylvania and a history teacher. She's dedicated and works so hard, and she's actually the manager of the hockey team and helps coordinate all of the events for their team. Moreover, I remember looking in that mirror and not recognizing who that person was looking back at me. I've been through a lot. I've had a lot of scars along my life, including ended up with breast cancer after taking care of Shane. But I stand here today, 5 years, and survived because I had warriors teach me how to survive. So when I looked in that mirror, I may not recognize, but what I also saw, other people's faces in that mirror. My mama, who's 89 years old and who has dementia, I'm caring for her now. I saw my father who passed away. I saw my nephew who passed away from fentanyl poisoning last year. Devastating, devastating. I see my grandsons. I see my daughter-in-law. I see my Wounded Warrior Project teammates. And I realize that I have the courage to endure because of them. That I am grateful in every way for your sacrifice as veterans have across the country. More importantly, I ask you today, who will you see the next time you look in a mirror? War leaves a path of scars. You can see, I screwed that up. Let me start over, guys. War leaves a path of scars. Some you can see, but most are invisible to the eye. You can't see them. But you must never forget, your scars are our scars. And you will never, never be alone. God bless America. Please go to woundedwarriorproject.org to learn more about our website and what we do as a nonprofit organization. And I want to thank you, each and every one. Where's Kevin? Kevin, my host over there. Thank you, Kevin, for all of your help. And thank you, each and every one of you, for what you do.